Hello, my name is Kennedy. Do all astronauts
My name is Alana.
My name is Avery. What are you most
My name is Leah. What advice
My
would you
name is
give?
Fred. Do you think there is evidence
My name
of
is Jenny. The first time you took off from...
my name is Ainsley. How do you get...
Would you live on Mars if you could?
We have a special guest with us here in Mission Control today, visiting in association with AMSAT and the IRIS experiment, the amateur radio experiment aboard the International Space Station. We have Frank Bauer, who is the Vice President for Spaceflight Programs at AMSAT with us. Welcome, Frank.
Thank you.
It's good to have you here. You are no stranger to NASA or Mission Control, but you're here for a special reason this week, and that is you've got a large group of folks here in Houston. Tell us a little bit about why you're here.
Yeah, we have about 130 people here from AMSAT, the Radio Amateur Satellite Corporation, and we're here for a space symposium all weekend starting actually on Friday. And what we are doing is discussing our amateur radio satellites and IRIS and improving our operations. And one of the major satellites we're working on is a CubeSat called Fox. And so we've got a lot of different spacecraft that we've built over the years. Way over 70 satellites at this point, starting in 1961, very first satellite called Oscar 1.
Oscar 1, and then as we mentioned, you're no stranger to NASA. You worked at Goddard Space Flight Center and elsewhere. Tell us a little bit about your history with the agency.
Yeah, I started in the mid-'70s working for NASA at Goddard, and actually my career was down here for a couple of years on Constellation, and then ultimately NASA headquarters folks asked me to come up and be the chief engineer for exploration. So I was doing that for 4 years and retired about 2 years ago.
Okay. And in retirement, you're staying busy, obviously, working with this group. We've got about 130 people, I think, visiting Johnson Space Center here from your symposium. It's great to have them here in the viewing room. So tell us a little bit, this is all about the International Space Station today, so give us a little bit of history and tell us a little bit about IRIS and its value to both the folks on the space station and to folks here on the ground.
And one of the things we were celebrating this weekend is that this is the 30th anniversary of amateur radio on human spaceflight vehicles. And so we had a panel session with Owen Garriott and Bill MacArthur and others to talk about that. Owen being on STS-9, being the very first amateur radio operator to actually talk to anyone on the ground, ham radio operators, and then ultimately in 1996 we started the IRIS program, Amateur Radio on the International Space Station, and that program's been going very well on Space Station. We turned on the radio system 2 weeks after Bill MacArthur and Sergei Krikalev got into the modules on Space Station, and we've been operating since on all 37 expeditions at this point.
And about how many contacts do you have in any given period with the Space Station amateur radio?
Well, we're doing about 100 a year, about 2 a week. Actually, we had 2 today that were very successful. Cradle of Aviation Museum up in New York, and another school in New Jersey. And so we have about 2 a week. It depends on orbit dynamics and things like that. But so it keeps us pretty busy. The interesting thing about our program is it's all volunteer. So we're touching about 15,000 students directly a year in the program, and then also millions see the contact between the space shuttle astronauts and the students. We give them about orbit dynamics mean that we can give them about a 10-minute opportunity to Q&A the astronauts on all kinds of different questions. and it works out really well. And it's inspiring. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity for the students, for the families, for the whole community. The whole community gets behind this thing, and millions, like I said, millions experience it a year as part of that activity.
And I actually had the pleasure of being at one of those contacts in Northern California a couple of years ago, and it really is quite the setup because your volunteers come in, they set up the antennas outside the school, the teachers organize a couple 300 students to come in the auditorium. They have a large group and a program about the space station and discuss the orbital mechanics that are allowing it to come within radio range for the ARIS experiment. And then they do a countdown to the contact, and then they get a chance to actually speak live with the astronauts on the space station. I saw the grins on the faces of the kids that got to talk, and they asked some pretty interesting questions too.
Yes, exactly. And so it's all about education. It's to get students interested in STEM careers: science, technology, engineering, math. And we go beyond just inspire, into engaging the students and educating the students. Ultimately, that's our goals and objectives of the program. And it's of course, from our perspective, there's three main organizations in the United States involved. NASA, of course, very intimately involved, the AMSAT folks, and the American Radio Relay League. And then I have a whole team around the world that are supporting this from the various space agency organizations. We have ham radio groups, in Europe and in Russia and Japan, Canada. They're all involved. When Chris Hadfield flew, there was a huge activity there. If you watched all of the school contacts that were being done up and down, the whole Canadian province, if you will.
All right. Well, so truly a global initiative and a great inspirational opportunity for students on the ground. And I know the astronauts enjoy participating and talking with them. It gives them a little relief from their day-to-day activities as well. So,
exactly.
Frank Bauer, thank you very much for coming in and talking to us about amateur radio on the space station and other vehicles. And we wish you and all your guests here a great day today.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kelly.
All right. Thanks, Frank.
Bye-bye.
I still wake up every morning and it feels like a pinch me moment to think that I'm actually an astronaut right now. I am Jasmine Mogbelli. I think as a kid, I believed I could do anything. So to me, I was going to be in the NBA, I was going to be an astronaut, and I was going to be an Olympic skier. So to me, it didn't faze me. I've been very lucky to be surrounded by people that have always supported me. My husband, my parents, they 100% have supported me.
Jasmine Mogbelli.
As I started to overcome more challenges through my life, I realized, hey, I could possibly really do this. I think it's 100% natural to have doubt. What's important is how you respond to that doubt and just let that be your driver to work harder and figure out a different way to do things. I think there are a lot of reasons for going to the moon. Our curiosity. Who in the world doesn't stare up at the moon and just wonder, while we've been there before, we've only explored a limited region of it. And so getting to learn more about the moon, I think not only can teach us more about Earth and our own planet, but also can set us up for going further and going to Mars. And when you talk about the way we want to go to the moon for Artemis, one, going to the lunar South Pole, just landing on that South Pole with the lighting conditions. There are permanently shadowed regions, so we can't use solar energy necessarily. What resources are on the moon that we can use? How much of them are there? How can we use a base from the moon to go further? Anything that might jeopardize the mission, whether I'm on it or not. Those are the things that kind of keep me up when I lay down at night, and those are the things that I think about. It's a deep question. Who am I? Well, I'm a wife now. I'm a daughter, my parents' favorite child, probably. I'm a Marine. and I'm an astronaut.
Jasmine McBelly serves as the commander of the Crew 7 mission, her first flight to the International Space Station. She dreamt of traveling to space as a child and even dressed as the first woman in space for a 6th grade book report at her elementary school in New York.
In my mind, as I remembered it, I really looked like an astronaut. And it was really funny when I got selected and I was like, oh, let me see if I can find a photo of that. And I looked back and I was like, it looks more like a beekeeper outfit.
Years later, McBelly traded in that cosmonaut costume for a space camp jumpsuit and eventually a Marine uniform. She racked up more than 2,000 flight hours in more than 25 aircraft and flew more than 150 combat missions. She says her time as a helicopter pilot helped her when she was assisting on the Human Landing System program. That will be the version of the SpaceX Starship that will bring humans to the surface of the moon during the Artemis 3 mission.
It's things that we learn as helicopter pilots, how to do landings with, we call it brownout situation, where the dust is blowing all over. So the Apollo astronauts experienced that. They experienced a lot of the same visual illusions we see in helicopters.
2017 was a big year for her. That was when Major Jasmine McBelly became an astronaut candidate. As one of 13 members of the so-called Turtle class, she trained rigorously until graduation day in 2020. Now she is leading a fully international crew into orbit, with each seat of the SpaceX Crew Dragon spacecraft representing a different nation. McBelly herself will become the first professional Iranian-American astronaut to fly to space.
Anytime we are adding diversity to who is flying in space, I think we're opening the door for a future generation, for more people to believe they can do this as well.
Two of McBelly's biggest fans will wish her well on her journey to space. Her two twin girls, Estelle and Zelda. She hopes her story will not only inspire her daughters, but kids around the world while she's circling it.
When you say you want to be an astronaut in 6th grade, people go, yeah, okay, but they don't think you're actually going to become an astronaut. So it's pretty cool to look back and see that, you know, there have been many years in between then and many places and many things going on, but to have ended up here where I initially dreamed is pretty incredible.
For Spaceflight Now, I'm...
Hi, my name is Ruth.
And my name is Chris.
You must be pretty excited to talk directly with astronauts on the International Space Station today. While we're waiting for the space station to come over your portion of the sky, let's talk a little bit about how it's going to happen. Of course, Mission Control is in contact with astronauts all the time, using a big radio with lots of fancy equipment.
However, we're going to be using something very different today. We are going to use ham or amateur radio to talk directly to the International Space Station.
When most people hear the word radio, they think of a music radio station, but it's so much more than that. Radio actually refers to the unseen energy that transmits all sorts of signals using electromagnetic waves. At first, people learned how to send signals like Morse code, and then they discovered that you can send so much more, like data, computer signals, and even TV.
Maybe you don't realize it, but you use radio every day. Maybe you watched the TV this morning, or you texted your friends, or maybe even you check social media like Twitter or Instagram.
Let's travel back to space for a minute. Since the beginning of the space age, humans have sent many spacecraft out into the universe. These range from the Hubble Space Telescope orbiting the Earth daily, and the Curiosity rover exploring Mars. We've even sent a long-distance messenger, the Voyager 1, who has traveled outside of our solar system.
Whether it's capturing a great picture of a far-off galaxy or conducting experiments on the space station, radio has to do with all of these. And today, you're going to be using ham radio. Now you might be wondering, what exactly is ham radio?
Amateur or ham radio is a service and a hobby where operators can talk with people around their neighborhoods, their cities, their country, and even around the world. Amateur radio operators require a radio license from the government. They're not that hard to get. I have one. My call sign is KM4LAO.
And mine is KD8YVJ. Our call signs are a way of identifying who we are to other operators. This lets everyone know that we have the proper license to using the radios.
As amateur radio operators, or hams as we are often called, we can talk with others about basically whatever we want, often science or some new radio gadget that we are interested in.
Let's focus back to the space station and your contact today. Many of the astronauts and cosmonauts aboard the space station are licensed ham radio operators. That's why your operators today can contact them. The people here, as well as the astronauts, are licensed to talk to each other, and you are allowed to talk over to their radio.
For our conversation today, we'll need an amateur radio station on the ground, either in this location or somewhere else around the world. We'll also need a radio in the space station.
Anyone SS, anyone SS.
You can hear the calls come. This is November Alpha 1 Sierra Sierra, the International Space Station, over.
On the space station, the radio transceiver is connected to an amateur radio antenna mounted on the outside. One of these antennas will be used today during our contact.
For our side of the contact, we need a good-sized antenna, a signal amplifier, something to make our signal stronger, and a rotator for turning our antenna. We have to keep our antenna pointed right at the International Space Station. And remember, it's moving across the sky and fast.
To aim the antenna properly, we need to track the path of the space station exactly. NASA uses complex systems to track the path of the space station and other orbiting objects.
The satellite tracking program we are using works out a complicated set of mathematics to provide the orbital location of the space station moment by moment as it moves through space. This information is sent into the computer that controls the antenna rotator, which moves the antenna to follow the space station. Maybe some of you have seen or worked with robotics. That's pretty cool stuff. And just like you can program a robot where to go, what to do, and how to get there, you can also program a computer to tell an antenna how to track the space station across the sky.
You know, it took a lot of planning to get this contact. Several weeks ago, the ISS operations team had to figure out when the space station's orbit would pass over this location. Then, they had to talk with the planners at NASA's Johnson Space Center. The crew's time is pretty full, so they were able to find a time that could work for the crew members' schedules. Once they found times that would work both in space and here on the ground, the host organized this contact. And in just a few minutes, you'll be hearing and talking to the astronauts.
Well, it's almost time for your contact. It will be exciting, so good luck with it.